So if you have ever felt, a surge of genuine rage at seeing a glittering floor-to-ceiling display of plastic reindeer in the supermarket in late September.
Which, honestly, most of us have at some point.
Right, exactly. Well, psychology suggests you aren't just being a Grinch, your brain is actually experiencing a real temporal disruption.
Yeah, it's an absolute shock to the system.
But for the millions of people who actually bought those early reindeer, I mean, they aren't confused about the calendar at all. They're essentially chemically medicating their anxiety. So, welcome to the era of Christmas creep.
It really is an era, isn't it? The calendar is just, well, it's collapsing in on itself.
Yeah.
We're seeing a complete dissolution of the boundaries that used to separate our seasonal rituals.
Yeah, totally.
And critics tend to view this early onset of sleigh bells, often before the autumn leaves have even turned, as a sign of cultural impatience or just like rampant consumerism.
Which brings us to the mission for this deep dive. Today, we're taking a stack of sources, including data and analysis from Psychology Today, the National Retail Federation, CBC News, and various clinical psychoanalysts, and we're going to figure out exactly why the traditional holiday timeline is breaking down.
There's a lot of ground to cover there.
There is. We really want to uncover the surprising, deeply psychological reasons why people are dragging artificial fir trees out of their attics in October and, what it means for the rest of us.
The data points to a massive cultural shift. It moves far beyond just, wanting to open presents early or corporations pushing inventory on us.
Right.
We're looking at a fundamental rewiring of how people utilize their physical environments to manage psychological stress.
Okay, let's unpack this. Oh, wait, no, I just realized I'm not supposed to say it like that. Okay, let's unpack this, because my initial reaction to seeing a frosted snowman next to the Halloween candy is that it feels exactly like hearing your morning alarm clock go off at 2 in the morning.
Oh, that is a great way to put it. It's jarring.
Extremely jarring. You are totally disoriented. Your brain is like actively rejecting the signal. But then the panic subsides and you think, well, wait a minute, maybe there is a functional reason we're waking up this early.
Like a fire alarm or something.
Exactly, or a really early flight to catch. The disruption has to serve some underlying purpose, right?
The disruption absolutely serves a purpose. It acts as a deliberate curation of a sanctuary of comfort.
A sanctuary of comfort, I like that.
Yeah, because the people putting up those displays aren't reacting to top-down marketing as passive consumers. They are highly intentional actors. They're looking at the external world, evaluating their internal state, and actively deploying seasonal aesthetics as a coping mechanism.
To really grasp the mechanics of that coping mechanism, though, we first have to look at the visible symptoms in our environment, because the sheer scale of this temporal blurring is just staggering.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Historically, the progression of autumn and winter holidays followed a very strict, almost sacred choreography. I mean, Halloween had its window.
Right.
Thanksgiving had its window. And then, and only then, did the winter holidays begin.
They operated as discrete psychological chapters.
Right.
You just didn't cross the streams,
You never crossed the streams.
But that strict segregation relied on a baseline level of societal predictability that we simply don't have anymore. What we are seeing now is a marathon that actively overlaps.
Yeah, you have households carving pumpkins on the porch while a fully decorated, illuminated tree sits right there in the living room window.
It's wild to see.
Yeah.
And the retail environment mirrors this perfectly. Our sources describe seasonal aisles as a revolving door of holiday cheer.
A revolving door, yeah.
Right? Where the physical space of a store no longer transitions linearly, but it layers multiple seasons simultaneously.
But it's not just the physical supermarkets, is it? The entertainment landscape is doing the exact same thing, normalizing the overlap in our digital spaces.
Absolutely.
Major streaming platforms are routinely pushing their winter movie collections to the top of the algorithm before November even hits. You log in on October 20th, and the platform is aggressively serving you Home Alone.
Always Home Alone.
Right, highlighting Catherine O'Hara or pushing those heavily saturated, ultra-cozy Hallmark hits.
We also have to look at how utility and festivity are being blended to force this timeline forward.
What do you mean by utility?
Well, the sources mention alternative holiday carols circulating online that are actually public service announcements about winter safety.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. By wrapping practical early winter preparation in a festive, recognizable audio format, the media ecosystem integrates the holiday spirit into our cognitive bandwidth much earlier.
That's sneaky.
It is. It normalizes the preparation phase and turns it into a prolonged celebration.
Which makes me highly skeptical of the underlying motives here. I mean, I read those same CBC News and National Retail Federation reports. Are we absolutely sure we aren't just victims of sophisticated corporate trickery?
It's a fair question to ask.
It feels like we are giving too much credit to the consumer. If an algorithm is pushing winter nostalgia in October, and the supermarket is physically blocking the aisle with tinsel, aren't we just succumbing to algorithm-induced demand?
What's fascinating here is that the behavioral data completely contradicts the idea of a passive, manipulated consumer.
Really? How so?
It is a reciprocal relationship. Yes, retailers and streaming platforms are providing the stimuli, but they're responding to massive, quantifiable consumer pull.
So the demand is already there.
Exactly. If the demand wasn't there, the inventory just wouldn't move. And the algorithms would optimize away from winter content due to low engagement. Consumers are actively seeking out the solace that early celebrations provide.
Okay, if that is true, then we have to look inward. If we aren't being tricked into this marathon, what is the actual biological payoff for firing up the twinkle lights while the pumpkins are still fresh?
It's a great question.
There is a quote in the research from a licensed psychoanalyst that really stuck with me. They noted, and I'm quoting here, "In a world full of stress and anxiety, people like to associate with things that make them happy. And Christmas decorations evoke those strong feelings of childhood."
That is so powerful.
It points to something much deeper than just liking pretty lights, right?
It points to the function of a psychological anchor. In times of profound external uncertainty, whether that's economic instability, a chaotic news cycle, or just, general modern anxiety, the human brain aggressively seeks out ways to ground itself.
Just looking for a safe harbor.
Exactly. Surrounding yourself with positive, deeply encoded familiar cues acts as a therapeutic tool. It allows an individual to reclaim a sense of agency and control over their immediate environment when the macro environment feels totally out of their hands.
The sources actually draw an incredible analogy for this nostalgia factor. They compare the comfort of early holiday decorating to the warmth of watching classic daytime game shows on a sick day in our youth.
Oh, I love that analogy. It perfectly captures the neurological mechanism at play.
Right, because when you were a child staying homesick, the predictability of a daytime game show, the care from a parent, the specific soup you ate, all of those formed a multi-sensory association with safety.
Yes, and as adults navigating complex stressors, we don't really have the luxury of checking out and watching Bob Barker to reset our nervous systems.
Sadly, no.
But we do have access to holiday decorations.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of viewing the decorations as a cliché suit of emotional armor, which feels, I don't know, a bit passive.
Yeah, bit defensive.
The psychology suggests it's more like building a psychological Faraday cage inside your living room.
A Faraday cage. That's good.
You are constructing a highly specific sensory environment designed to block out the external static of modern stress and preserve a very specific internal emotional baseline.
That is a much more accurate way to look at the neuroscience behind this. The data from Psychology Today breaks down exactly how that Faraday cage operates.
Let's hear it.
Well, early decorating triggers a profound dopaminergic response, but it goes beyond just a quick spike of a feel-good neurotransmitter. Unpacking decorations requires your brain to process highly specific, heavily encoded sensory inputs.
Like the smells and the lights.
Exactly. The olfactory bulb is directly connected to the amygdala, meaning the smell of pine or cinnamon bypasses logical processing entirely and immediately signals safety. And the visual spectrum emitted by warm twinkle lights actively downregulates the sympathetic nervous system, shifting you out of a fight-or-flight state.
So the brain actually craves this nostalgic retreat because it physically alters your heart rate and your stress hormones.
Yes.
It is a biological sigh of relief that boosts overall energy by reducing the background cognitive load of anxiety.
Precisely. You're utilizing external objects to manually override your internal stress response.
But wait, if this is about building an internal sanctuary, a private Faraday cage to block out the world, why do people project it outward?
What do you mean?
Why take this deeply personal coping mechanism and build a massive illuminated display on the front lawn? I mean, doesn't exposing it to the neighborhood completely defeat the purpose of an internal controlled sanctuary?
You'd think so, but that outward display actually serves a secondary psychological function, which environmental psychology researchers have measured.
Okay.
The way a house is decorated heavily influences how the inhabitants are perceived by their community. Houses with early holiday displays are consistently rated by neighbors as far more approachable, cohesive, and friendly.
What is the mechanism there, though? Why do string lights translate to friendly in the human brain?
It is essentially pro-social signaling. Bright, warm lighting and communal aesthetic displays mimic the evolutionary signals of a safe gathering space.
Like a campfire.
It's exactly like a central hearth fire. By putting up a display early, the homeowner is broadcasting a signal of sociability. They are telling the neighborhood, we are participating in a shared cultural joy, and our space is safe.
That makes a lot of sense.
It fosters a micro-community cohesion that further reduces the homeowner's anxiety by making them feel socially integrated.
So what does this all mean for the traditionalists? You have a very vocal contingent of people who argue fiercely that early decorations ruin the specialness of the season.
Oh, they are very vocal.
They claim it cheapens the experience. But based on this environmental psychology data, are those traditionalists inadvertently signaling coldness? By strictly guarding the calendar and keeping their houses dark until December, are they actively isolating themselves from the very social cohesion that their neighbors are building?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see the friction between individual preference and macro-level social dynamics. The traditionalist is trying to preserve the potency of the holiday by concentrating it into a short window. But because the early decorators are setting the social and aesthetic tone for the neighborhood months in advance, the traditionalist ends up looking disconnected from the prevailing community spirit.
Left out in the cold, literally.
Pretty much. And because this early adopter group has grown so large, they aren't just altering neighborhood dynamics. They are fundamentally forcing the global economy to bend to their new timeline.
The economic data in our sources is fascinating on this front. The National Retail Federation explicitly states that early shopping is no longer a quirky fringe behavior.
Not at all.
It is the definitive new normal. And a huge driver for this is basic financial practicality.
Well, we just discussed how early decorating smooths out emotional volatility, right?
Yeah.
Early shopping does the exact same thing for financial volatility. Attempting to execute all of your holiday purchasing, travel booking, and food preparation within a condensed 3-week window in December creates a massive spike in household financial stress.
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming.
So by extending that timeline to begin in October, consumers spread out their budgets over multiple pay periods, which drastically reduces the immediate shock to their bank accounts.
The CBC News report details how this specific behavioral shift has completely upended corporate operations, too. Brands are having to launch their massive holiday campaigns months in advance just to capture those early bird dollars.
They don't have a choice.
But practically speaking, how does a brand even execute that? It's not just running a commercial early. It has to change everything about how they operate.
It requires a total restructuring of supply chain logistics and Q3 forecasting. If a retailer waits until Black Friday to start marketing or moving inventory,
it's too late.
Yeah, they have essentially forfeited a massive chunk of their annual revenue to competitors who moved earlier. They have to manufacture goods sooner, ship them across the ocean earlier, and absorb the warehouse costs of holding that inventory in late summer.
That's a huge shift.
They are taking on significant logistical risk to ensure they are present at the exact moment the consumer decides to initiate their personal holiday season.
Okay, so we have established the internal psychology of downregulating the nervous system and the external economics of smoothing out household budgets. But what was the accelerant? Because, 10 years ago, the house that put up lights in October was the eccentric outlier. Today, it's a massive demographic. How did a private, quirky habit evolve into an unstoppable cultural avalanche?
The digital amplifier.
The internet ruins everything. Or fixes it, depending on how you look at it.
The introduction of highly optimized social media algorithms completely democratized and accelerated the practice.
Let's talk about the specific aesthetic escalation happening on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. It is essentially an arms race of tinsel.
An arms race of tinsel, yes.
Right.
It is a profound psychological feedback loop. You have content creators and influencers actively competing for engagement by showcasing the earliest and most elaborate holiday room makeovers.
I see it constantly. One person posts a living room transformation in early November.
Yep.
The algorithm rewards it with massive reach because it's novel and comforting. Another creator sees that metric success and decides to do their transformation in late October to beat the rush.
It just pushes it earlier and earlier.
Suddenly you have people constructing full winter wonderlands in September just to capture the algorithm's attention. It forces everyone participating in that digital space to step up their game.
And that alters the dopamine reward loop we discussed earlier. The private sanctuary is now a performative cultural standard.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
traditionalists, who rely on a quiet, community-agreed-upon timeline, are completely drowned out. They are vastly outnumbered by a highly visible, algorithmically boosted community that has successfully shifted the baseline of what is considered normal behavior.
It is a snowball effect happening in real time. But the sources point out some incredible future predictions that go far beyond just digital algorithms driving the timeline. The physical world is changing, and that is going to fundamentally alter when and how we celebrate.
The environmental factor is perhaps the most disruptive element on the horizon. Global climate patterns are shifting, and winter weather is becoming increasingly erratic and severe in many regions.
Right.
The sources suggest this will lead to extreme regional variance in holiday timelines.
The research specifically calls out warmer climates on this. If you live in a region where late November and December are increasingly defined by severe seasonal storms or, unpredictable extreme weather events, you are highly incentivized to put your elaborate outdoor displays up in October.
Exactly.
You decorate when the weather is actually pleasant enough to safely install the lights and allow your family to enjoy them outdoors before the storms hit.
Think about the logistical ripple effects of that behavior at scale. If the entire southern half of a country shifts its decorating timeline forward by 6 weeks to avoid hurricane or severe storm seasons, local governments have to completely alter how they plan municipal winter festivals.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and global manufacturers have to segment their production schedules to ship outdoor displays to those specific regions far earlier than they do for northern climates. The unified monolithic holiday timeline fractures into dozens of regional micro-timelines dictated by meteorology.
This raises an important question. Wait, I did it again. Okay. So this raises an important question. How long can the traditional borders between our holidays actually survive?
It's the ultimate question.
If local climates are physically forcing us to change our habits, and global social media algorithms are psychologically incentivizing us to erase the boundaries between seasons, are we looking at the end of the distinct Christmas season?
The consensus among the psychological and economic experts in our sources is that those strict traditional borders are already permanently eroding.
Really? Permanently?
Yes. The idea of a contained 3-week period is a historical artifact at this point. The tide has shifted, driven by very real needs for emotional regulation, financial smoothing, and climate adaptation.
So pushing back is pointless.
Fighting that tide by clinging to a rigid calendar is largely useless. The takeaway from the data is that individuals are best served by embracing whatever mechanisms provide them with genuine peace and cohesion in an increasingly unpredictable world.
So, to you listening right now, whether you are a traditionalist who guards the Thanksgiving border with your life, or a maverick who has been running your twinkle light since the first week of September, this deep dive offers you a degree of psychological permission.
Permission to do what works for you.
Exactly. You now know the mechanics of why you crave that comfort. If building a psychological Faraday cage out of ornaments helps you downregulate your nervous system and find a little bit of peace, then you have the data to back up your choices.
However, I'd like to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over on your own.
Lay it on us.
We have thoroughly explored how extending the holiday timeline helps consumers spread out their budgets and reduce immediate acute stress. But if this festive season continues to stretch out, transforming into a 3 or 4 month long marathon, we have to consider the long-term cognitive load.
Oh, interesting.
Could the sustained financial and social pressure of maintaining that intricate sanctuary of comfort for a quarter of the year eventually backfired? Could the relentless pressure to keep the magic alive for months on end ultimately generate the exact same chronic anxiety that those decorations were originally deployed to cure?
Man, that is a fascinating, heavy thought to carry with you the next time you find yourself wandering down the seasonal aisle. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive and exploring the mechanics hidden inside this stack of sources. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking for the why behind the cultural shifts we take for granted, and remember that sometimes a plastic reindeer in September is actually a masterclass in neuroscience. Catch you next time.